is a presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Fox Sports. We are Indiana.
For 50 years, the Pacers have meant basketball in a state where basketball means so much. This year, we pay tribute to the Pacer greats who made this golden season possible.
The Pacers win! The Indiana Pacers are the ABA champions!
We cap off a day of celebrating basketball in Indiana by honoring the golden age of the Pacers. 3 titles, countless legends, and limitless memories. These are the Pacers of the 1970s. This year we celebrate our past, cheer for the present, and look forward to the future. To 50 more years of Pacers basketball in Indiana.
A special day in Central Indiana that is all about basketball. The 5th game on Fox Sports Indiana. Basketball Day in Indiana continues with one of the signature games of the 50th season of Pacers basketball, the Decade Night game where we honor the stars of the 70s. You could call that the greatest decade of all, considering it included 3 championship teams and so many legendary names and faces. Many of those Indiana icons are inside Bankers Life Fieldhouse tonight, and we cannot wait to tell their story tonight. The Pacers also play the Portland Trailblazers, game 24 of 82, a festive night inside Bankers Life Fieldhouse. I am Jeremiah Johnson, honored and privileged to be here for Pacers Live pregame on this special day and night. Kristen Airy will join the program throughout with some special interviews as we talk to the stars of the 70s and help share their stories with you, the viewers of Fox Sports Indiana. As always on Pacers Live pregame, we start with the Penske Promise. 3 things we think you need to know. It's about the Pacers of the 70s. They won those 3 ABA titles, 1970, 72, and 73. 3 members are in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Mel Daniels, a 2-time ABA MVP in 1969 and 1971. And a special treat for everyone in attendance at Bankers Life Fieldhouse tonight. They'll get a free bobblehead, either Mel Daniels or George McGinnis. Which would you choose if given the opportunity? You cannot go wrong. Part of the festivities surrounding this decade night. And as we start this show, let's take a look back at the decade that was the 1970s.
The decade of the 70s started with championships for the Pacers. In the 1970 ABA postseason, Indiana ran through 3 rounds with a 12-3 overall record. The first title was sealed by topping the LA Stars in 6 games. And the ABA titles returned in back-to-back fashion just a couple of years later. In the 1972 ABA Finals, the Pacers were led by rookie George McGinnis in a 6-game series win over Rick Barry and the New York Nets. The final Pacers ABA championship featured a 7-game thriller, with Indiana winning the I-65 series over the rival Kentucky Colonels. The second 70s milestone was development, the construction of a new home for the team. Opening in 1974, Market Square Arena was completed for $23 million. The new arena featured the playing floor elevated over Market Street. MSA hosted a great variety of events, including the Men's Final Four in 1980 and the final live concert by Elvis Presley in 1977. Market Square was home to the team until 1999. And the third development of the 70s was the Pacers' move to the NBA. On August 5th, 1976, 4 ABA teams merged into the NBA, thus expanding the league to 22 teams. The Pacers' first NBA year opened with an overtime loss to the Boston Celtics and later featured the team's first All-Stars, as Billy Knight and Don Buzzi were named to the Western Conference All-Star squad.
That our first interview of the 70s Decade Night pregame is with the person who has done more for this franchise than anyone else, Bobby Slick Leonard, a champion as a player, coach, and boom baby broadcaster, a member of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Slick recently took a trip down memory lane with our Kristen Airy.
All right, Slick, 50 years of Pacers basketball. Nobody better to talk about this anniversary. What's 50 years of the Pacers mean to you?
Well, great memories, Chris. Going all the way back when we first started. That first year, I was a consultant to Mike Storn. Then the next year, I took over coaching. And, I look back through those 50 years. And, of course, we won the championships back in the 70's. And all the great players that have come down the line since then. It's been exciting. But Chris, when it started, I had been an NBA player and coach. And when they came at me with that red, white, and blue ball and the three-point line, I thought, this is not going to work. But here we are 50 years later, and we got a great franchise.
You won 3 ABA titles, and as important as basketball was to Indianapolis, I think it was just as important to setting up the fabric of the city. Slick, I don't think Indianapolis would be the city it is without the Pacers.
Well, you bring up a good point there, because when the Pacers started, Indianapolis was kind of run down a little bit, and the town latched onto these guys. They latched onto the Mel Daniels, the Roger Browns, the George McGinnises, guys that are now in the Hall of Fame, and they became household names. And the city went right along, and of course then, when we ran out of room there at the Fairgrounds Coliseum, we built Market Square Arena, and then we got a great facility today in Bankers Life.
A 5-year period where you win 3 ABA championships. So the franchise was very successful. What was the key to that?
Great players. Yeah, you've got to have the talent level was very good. The talent level was very high, and sometimes, fans in various sports, when you're losing, they point the finger right at the coach. Well, usually when you're losing, you don't have the talent level it takes to win, because the coaches get the job done. They get the job done. So in those years, we had a lot of success. We went to, in that 8-year span, Chris, we went to the championship series 5 times, won 3 of them, and the other 3 years we went to the conference finals. So, it was an 8-year run, and it was a ball. It was a ball. We really had fun.
Slick, this franchise, though, was at a crossroads. Going into the NBA, not sure if it would stick around. And you and your wife, Nancy, you had the telethon. Sold season tickets and kept this franchise from going away. What was that time period like for you?
Well, it was tough. It was tough because we lost some players because we didn't have any money. We didn't have any money, and we didn't know if we were going to make it or not. Even going back, Chris, into the 70's, with the ownership we had then spread around Indianapolis guys. There were times in the playoffs when they would come into the dressing room and say, Slick, if we don't win this playoff series, we're going to have to fold up the tent. So you talk about pressure. You talk about pressure. We had it right on our back, but it carried through, and we were one of the 4 teams to get in, and finally we got the money behind us. We're solid. We're solid. It wasn't like that. It was tough going.
So over the last 30 years, you've seen the Simon family assume ownership, take this franchise to new heights. Larry Bird comes back as a head coach now, running the basketball, the franchise, Reggie Miller, all the great names. What has the last 30 years for you meant as a broadcaster to see where this franchise has gone?
Well, I'm, being an original, I'm just so happy. I'm so happy to see the city of Indianapolis have an NBA franchise that's good and solid, and be able to bring in the great players and basketball players that we've brought in. And, looking ahead, I'm looking ahead myself, Chris. I'm up in years now, but I want to last long enough to see him win an NBA championship.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you, Chris and Slick. CD in the next segment chats with the first ladies of the Pacers in the 70s. Nancy Leonard, CeCe Daniels, and Jeannie Brown. Stay with us. We're just getting started on Pacers Live pregame. Pacers Live on Fox Sports Indiana is brought to you by Indiana Members Credit Union. Keeping it simple. By Menards. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by Xfinity. Xfinity One will change the way you experience sports. So much excitement when I first heard about the 50th season of Pacers basketball and the Decade Nights. We honored the stars of the 60s in November. In December, the stars of the 70s. Of course, 3 ABA championship teams, so many magical moments and stories. You heard from Slick Leonard to start this show. Let's take a look back at what happened in the 1970s, both in and around the basketball game downtown Indianapolis. Bobby Slick Leonard leads the Pacers to those 3 titles. New digs, yes, Market Square Arena in 1974. You see some of the things off the court that happened. And then Ann Meyer, she got a tryout with the Pacers in the 1979 season. Of course, 1976, the Indiana Hoosiers' undefeated season. That included Quinn Buckner. So much to talk about, and so many great books and stories about that ABA generation. This is from the book Loose Balls, about the ABA generation. Roger Brown, this is from Slick Leonard on former Pacers star Roger Brown. He was a complete basketball player. One-on-one, no man could guard him, like no man can guard Michael Jordan. In the 1972 finals, he went head-to-head with Rick Barry, and no one could tell who was the better player. Today, everybody knows Rick Barry. No one knows Roger Brown, which is a shame. Roger was in the same class as Barry. He could do the same things: pass, go to the basket, and hit the three-pointer. For more of an insider perspective on Roger, Slick, and also Mel Daniels, we toss it courtside to Kristen Arian.
Thanks so much, JJ. As we celebrate the decade of the 70s, it would not be right unless we include the ladies of the 70s. These are the women behind the men that won the 3 ABA championships: Jeannie Brown, Nancy Leonard, and CeCe Daniels. And CeCe, I know it was a wonderful time during that 70s period. Your husband, Mel, was such an integral part of the team. What was it like? Take us back 40 years ago.
Well, you know, we came here from Minnesota, and we had just graduated from college, UNM, Bob King. So we had no gauge. But the family atmosphere that Nancy created immediately when she came on board made it all the difference. It was exciting. We were comfortable. Mel loved his teammates, and I loved the city of Indianapolis.
Nancy, you hear that, and I take you back 40 years. You and Slick just did so much, and you were involved day to day. You were the general manager of this team.
Could we just forget the 40 years and pretend like it's 20? I'll tell you, it's irreplaceable. The family, my girls here. It was a wonderful, fun time. Probably will never be replicated again. It involved all the players, the owners, the stat crew, the citizens of Indianapolis. It was a miracle, really, because who knew? It's just come down and have a lot of fun, and all of a sudden it's taking off, and it's becoming the entertainment in the basketball world.
Jeannie, she doesn't want to hear 40 years, but you and Roger and this group, you set the table. We all would not be here if it wasn't for you. Is it hard to believe that it's been that long since the Pacers had that great success and Roger was so good?
Yeah, it does seem like a really long time, but Roger died in 1997. I wish he were here to enjoy all this. But it was one of the best times of our life for all of us, I think. And Nancy and Slick did create a family atmosphere. We were all young, we were in love, and we were winning.
That's right.
And that made it even better.
And what's even been better about that, they were all honored. Roger, Mel, Slick, all members of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. We all wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these 3 ladies, CeCe, Nancy, and Jeannie. We'll throw it to break. It's been a great basketball day of Indiana. We have plenty more for you coming up on Fox Sports Indiana.
Basketball Day in Indiana started with 3 high school games. First, the Carmel girls against Center Grove. It was the Amy Dilk show. She had a triple-double. You saw her passing. You see her shooting. Carmel beat Center Grove 63-47. Then at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, it's Newcastle coming back from down 3 at halftime to defeat LaPel 61-43. Impressive performance from Mason Gillis. And then 1 versus 2. North Central number 2 knocks off top-ranked New Albany 84-60. Chris Wilkes had 32 points in the contest. As you see the scores from Basketball Day in Indiana, 4 games in the books. The one you just saw moments ago, Butler gets the victory against Cincinnati in front of a sellout crowd at Hinkle Fieldhouse, 75-65. So 3 high school games, 1 college game, and tonight, Pacers and Blazers. Basketball Day in Indiana could not be going any better. We hope you stay tuned for the conclusion, and we'll recap all the festivities tonight after Pacers live postgame. Yes, Pacers, they have a game tonight against the Portland Trailblazers. Indiana in bounce-back mode, trying to regroup after that loss to the Dallas Mavericks last night. A short time ago, I caught the thoughts from head coach Nate McMillan.
Yeah, well, this team, they beat us about a week ago, and they dominated the game from start to finish. For us, we want to try to get back on that winning track, defend home court. Tonight, we got to be tied together. I thought last night we had some individual play on the offensive end of the floor, and that affected us on the defensive end of the floor. We got to play the game together, move the ball, screen for each other, execute on the offensive end of the floor, and be connected on the defensive end of the floor.
Much more on Pacers Blazers later in the show. Coming up next, another special conversation. Chris Denary chats with Bill Newton and Len Elmore right here on Fox Sports Indiana. Rodney Stuckey, part of a bench unit that combined for 48 points against the Dallas Mavericks last night. Jeff Teague hopes to lead the starters to some better performance tonight against the Portland Trailblazers. The 12-12 Trailblazers against the 11-12 Pacers. If you look at the records, this matchup could not be any closer. Jeremiah Johnson back one final time on Pacers Live pregame, but we are just getting started on this 70s night, the decade night celebration right here on Fox Sports Indiana. Chris Denary's been a busy guy on this program, a variety of interviews. He is now downstairs standing by with a couple other special guests from the 1970s.
Thanks, JJ. So great to celebrate the decade of the 1970s and the Indiana Pacers as we celebrate 50 seasons of Pacers basketball. 2 players from the decade, Bill Fig Newton, as they called him, and Len Elmore. Glad to be with you guys. Bill, you were part, championship team, right? 1973. Yes, what was that like?
It was wonderful. For me, I grew up in Rockville, which is only 60 miles from here. And just to think that after I got out of college, the team that I had a chance to play for was the Pacers. I mean, that's just a dream come true. And then to have great timing of my rookie year, win the championship, I mean, doesn't get any better than that.
Len Elmore is no stranger to television. You've seen him all over the place analyzing college basketball, NBA, and you were one of those that played for the Pacers, ABA and NBA during that 1970s? Is that true?
That is true. Yeah. Came in here in 1974. We didn't get to the championship. We got to the finals that rookie year, and it was a great opportunity for guys like myself and Billy Knight as rookies to blend with veterans like George McGinnis and Don Boozy and guys like that, Roger Brown, the late Roger Brown. And we were able to play a couple of years, successful years, and then 76 was the merger. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to play in that first year. I had wrecked my knee right before the season started, but afterwards, it was still a pleasure to be a part of the Pacers and the NBA.
Yeah, what was it like transitioning from the ABA to the NBA?
Well, I will say this. Our style probably translated better back in those days. We were a much more wide-open team than many of the NBA teams. And I think the other 3 ABA teams as well kind of demonstrated a different type of play, more athleticism, quicker pace basketball, and I think everybody ultimately adapted it.
Bill, you come in, you mentioned rookie year, you win an ABA championship in 1973, and now some 40 years later, you see how the game has changed, but has adapted so many of those old ABA rules.
Right, and I always say that ABA, the first All-Star game of the merger between the NBA and ABA, there were more people, more players that had just straight ABA roots than had NBA roots. So it tells you that the ABA was really a quality league. And the fact that they took the three-point line right away shows you that that was a real innovative thing. And we always joke about they would actually do the red, white, and blue if it you know, they could get away with saying that was our idea.
Len, so much is made about the guy who's been around for 50 years, and that's Slick Leonard. His banner hangs high, 529 wins. Your thoughts about Slick Leonard and where he fits into the lore of Indiana basketball?
Well, I mean, obviously Slick is synonymous with Indiana Pacer basketball, and certainly in the state of Indiana with his career as a player in Indiana University and obviously as a coach throughout. You know, I recognize the good times that we had during those days. He was quite an innovative coach, quite a rascal at times, if you will, but players loved him, and, you know, we thrived with him.
So great to spend some time here with Bill Newton and Len Elmore, two of the players honoring tonight. We celebrate the decade of the 70s during this 50-year celebration of Pacers basketball. JJ?
Thanks, guys. Honoring George McGinnis and Mel Daniels. We'll hear from George a little bit later. We end this 70s night edition of Pacers Live pregame with some comments from Mel Daniels from a few years back. His thoughts on the impact of the ABA on today's game. We thank you for watching Pacers Live pregame.
But if they pay close attention to today's game, they'll see remnants of the American Basketball Association. Early offense, pick and roll, pick and pop, the utilization of three-point shot. The American Basketball League installed it. The American Basketball Association perfected it. Guys like Freddie, Louis Dampier, Dale Carrier, Billy Keller, Rick Mountain, those guys made that a part of the offense. So, you know, if you're watching NBA today, you're watching remnants of the American Basketball Association.